Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Monster Taming and Chill podcast, where we interview various monster taming developers to get a greater insight on their projects. Today, I'm very pleased to have pulled out the reverse Uno card, and I've brought Jason from Studio Arum, aka the developer behind Monster Crown. How's it going, man?
Hey Ed, not too bad. How about you?
Living the dream.
It's good to finally meet you. This is some sort of you're some sort of YouTube man, I believe.
This is a parallel universe where I'm interviewing you this time.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So, like I said, that reverse Uno card was pulled on Jason here because if you guys remember from the pilot episode of this podcast, Jason interviewed me, which was a lot of fun. And of course, after people saw that, they wanted more. So here we are.
Here we are. And you've had a lot of great interviews since. I've checked out. I may have missed like one episode, but generally I try to keep up on them, and I believe I've caught most of them.
Oh, nice.
And
I appreciate
they're always
that.
a great listen.
All right, perfect. So, I do really hope that most of you watching did see that episode I'm talking about because it gives a little more context to my first couple of questions here. So, what I wanted to ask was, I've noticed in the most recent Monster Crown update, you've added a couple new provinces, 3 new cities, if memory serves correct, a handful of new monsters alongside a plethora of other awesome stuff, but there's still no Ed in the game. So my first question today is, how dare you? And my second question is, who do you think you are?
I wasn't expecting that one. You weren't joking about the reverse Uno. Well, there's no gyms. So would you consider being some other sort of leader? Like maybe cult leader Ed? You could lead a cult of some sort.
I mean, the
And
mafia members have similar outfits to my avatar.
that's true, you already have the hat. I mean, what type of gym leader are you anyway? I've never heard, like, what's your type?
I guess because I have a fighting dojo in my banner, I guess I'm a fighting type gym leader. But I don't know. Maybe I'm like blue. Maybe I'm just multi-typed.
Okay, so
I just
you must
I
have
like dragons.
you must have an ace in mind. Like is there a fighting dragon Pokemon? I
There
don't
is,
think
but I'm
there
not
is.
a huge fan of Komodo. Like I don't hate it,
Oh, okay.
but
Gotcha.
yeah.
Gotcha. Well, Ed, have I had this in my brain, and I don't know if we actually discussed it, but I wanted to make you a tamer in the game that people could fight. Did we talk about this?
No, we didn't actually.
I have memory issues sometimes, I apologize, but I could have swore we actually spoke about that. But if you're up for that, yeah, sure, that'd be great, but I'm gonna hold you to your name and force you to pick one type to stick to. Just you kind of dug yourself into that one. So you'll have to think about which of the 5 types you want to represent.
Which
And we can't call you Gym Leader Ed, 'cause
yeah, it makes
I
sense.
think I'd
Makes
get
sense.
a copyright strike. But it'd be funny if we had a lot of like rip off Pokemon. So like, if you're a dragon tamer, we could have like not Dragonite. That's like Dragonite, but like with bigger wings and red. Like just an intellectually
Dragoonite.
distinct Dragoonite. Yeah, sounds like a plan. Sounds like a plan.
All right, so we're gonna. I guess we should probably get to the interview. So,
And if I could interrupt you for 1 second,
yeah.
I just want to say, as the interviewer, I know there's a lot of pressure to keep the attention on the other person and cut your answers short, but if you have something to elaborate on or comment on, I want you to do it. I just want you to just speak freely. It's cool
Gotcha.
with me. I'd prefer this to be like a discussion. If things come up, go for it.
Okay, perfect, gotcha. So I guess on that note, my first question is well, it's not really a question, but why don't you tell everyone about yourself? Give a little bit of insight onto who is Jason.
Okay, so I just turned 30, which is quite a milestone, but I'm a guy from Newfoundland, Canada, which is an island, and I grew up in a very rural area. And now that I moved to the big city, when I came to college, the big city here is still very small. It's stretched to call it urban, so I'm from a very small place, but I'm a software developer here, and that's what I do by day. And outside of work, I basically just do Monster Crown. Sometimes I go for like a drive with my fiance, but other than that, it's mostly just Monster Crown, and I'm cool with that That's it's like my dream project, so I'm very happy with it. I started that in 2016, so uh it's coming up on 5 years in February since the project started, and it's been quite a journey and adventure. A lot of things have happened in my life since I started that when I was 25, and but it's going to be done soon.
Wow, yeah. Damn, I can't believe it's already been 5 years.
It's insane. And it's a case of never having a solid idea before I began. It's not like I
Mm,
decided I want to make a huge Monster Taming game. I just wanted to make a tech demo with a little breeding system, and then you get a little bit better at art, and you find someone to work with, and the quality level is higher than you expected, and you start thinking, well, maybe this could be a slightly bigger, very small game, and then you do a Kickstarter and people are actually interested in the project, and then next thing you know, you start working with these artists that can do stuff that can stand alongside the best of the Super Nintendo and Game Boy Advance art. And then before you know it, you're like, yeah, well, I guess I'm gonna try to do with Monster Taming what Shovel Knight did with platformers,
mm.
and that's nothing that I thought from the start. That's just something that I kind of fell into, like falling up the stairs. But it's worked so far. But it's only thanks to all the fantastic people I have worked with and everyone that showed us support on Kickstarter and early access.
For sure, for sure. Actually, I like that you mentioned Shovel Knight because Shovel Knight's actually the game that got me into like looking at more indie games.
Yeah, it's quite it's amazing. Like Shovel Knight was kind of maybe not the first, but one of the first big ones that showed an incredibly high level of quality and authenticity of style
Yeah,
to indie games. It really put it on the map because you had games like Minecraft and like those were obviously gigantic, but Minecraft never really felt like an authentic retro game. It felt like something, pretty brand new, even though it was a little bit of a retro 3D aesthetic.
yeah,
Shovel Knight really, really made it feel real.
yeah, yeah. No, for sure. All right. So on that note, what inspired you to become a game developer?
Uh, well, I've had this question a couple of times, especially on Reddit with the AMAs, where people say like, "Oh, how do you become a game developer?" I think people get this understanding that Studio Worm is this game development studio, and I've somehow become the game designer of it. But actually, it's just me messing around with Unity, and things kind of just spiraled. There's no Studio Worm is me and the people that I work with from Monster Crown.
Hmm.
So it's kind of just from trying to put something out there. I happen to be in the director, game designer role for Monster Crown just because I built it from the ground up. And yeah, there's no big moment of inspiration. It's just trying to keep up where Monster Crown seemed to be going. And right from the beginning, it had a lot of interest. So in many ways, it's a few steps ahead of me, and I'm
Hmm.
rushing to catch up to it.
you was there anything specific that made you pick up Unity in the first place?
Well, I had dabbled a lot with Game Maker,
Oh yeah, me
and
too.
yeah, with Game Maker, a long time ago, way back in 2012,
Yeah, Game
and
Maker
then
7, Game Maker 8.
it was Game Maker 8,
Yeah.
yeah. And then I experimented a bit with Unity, making a tech demo that had network communications.
Hmm.
I said, well, I'd really like to do trading and battling. So
Yeah.
it made sense to leverage my existing knowledge of the networking within Unity. And Unity let me bring it to consoles. So I did consider shortly after we launched the project and we thought about taking this a bit more seriously, I did consider switching engines, but Unity always seemed a great one to get out there and get on consoles.
Hmm.
Game Maker didn't have good support for consoles back then, so
Yeah.
I said we'll just stick with it. It was never the best choice because Unity was always a 3D engine. It's not meant to be 2D. It has unnecessary overhead.
Yeah.
But I've always been a proponent of instead of sitting down and trying to plan out the perfect approach,
Yeah.
just do something. Because
Yeah.
I read a long time ago that if you want to start a business or you want to start a project, the people that succeed are the ones that when you come to a point where you're not sure what to do,
Yeah.
you trend towards action.
Yeah.
rather than saying, I don't know which way to go yet. So if you don't know for sure, and you're only like 60% sure one path is the right choice, you still make the choice and do it because momentum is more important than being 100% correct with your choices. That's what I read. It sounded right. I said, well, I guess I'm going to try to make myself like that. And so Unity it was because there was no big reason pushing me elsewhere.
Yeah, that's actually something that kind of relates to me too with YouTube. A lot of people think that your first video has to be perfect, and like if you notice a lot of bigger content creators, if you go back and watch their first videos, they kind of suck. Like
Yeah.
it's better to just get out there and get good at it by trial and error, experimenting with different things, than it is to just like sit and be like, well, I don't know what to do, and just nothing ever happens.
Yeah, momentum is worth a lot, and I think if you build stuff up in your head, like you always want to make the perfect decision before you do something, even if you do make the perfect choice and do something, that becomes your standard,
Yep.
and it kind of slows you down over the long haul. And when you're making something like a YouTube channel where you can iterate, you can get better. There's
Yeah.
no
Exactly.
penalty to getting better.
Yep.
Why not? Why not just go in head first?
That's it. Yep. That's it. So, my next question pertains obviously to Monster Crown. Can you describe Monster Crown as if I've never heard of the game before?
Okay. So if you've played the great 90s monster taming games, Dragon Warrior Monsters, you've played Monster Rancher, you've played Pokemon, of course, that pixel aesthetic, that good old Japanese feeling 90s, late 90s monster taming genre. If you've played that and you liked it, well, I want to make something that hopefully one day can stand alongside those titles. Like if you had all the games up on your shelf, the old classic 90s monster taming games, I want Monster Crown to be able to be on that shelf and fit in.
Hmm.
So it's a pixel art monster taming game. It's got a huge amount of monsters. It's turn-based, one versus one, and the big hook of Monster Crown is that it has a true crossbreeding system. So when you breed together monsters, you do get a true child that is a combination of both parents, and like a new species, merged in all ways with colors, appearance, move sets, learn sets, attacks, stats. You're creating new species as you go, and the world and the design of the game is wrapped around this concept that when you go looking, when you ask for more, there is more depth to be found. That's what I always wanted to create with the game, and I think the breeding system is the best example of that. That you can just keep going deeper.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. The breeding system especially is super. Like I was when you released the Gene Lab, I was I was astonished. I was like, holy customization! Like, holy crap!
Originally, it was just going to be a couple items that shifted the formula, like
Mm,
the ones in the zeros left to right. But
yeah,
it's just so cool to play scientist. Like
yeah,
I want to feel like those scientists from the Pokemon first movie that create Mewtwo that like goes too far. Like I
yeah.
want to I want to pretend to be Mr. Fuji or yeah.
Just gonna create the ultimate a Poe.
Yeah. Yeah, one of those that can actually hold its own in battle. It's definitely doable. It's And that's another thing about Monster Crown is right from the start we wanted to give people choice. If you're into breeding, if you're into exploring, or if you're into battling, you can still consume all the content of the game through your preferred means.
Mm,
If you don't want to sit around hatching eggs and you just want to go out and do battles, you can still see all the monsters.
yeah,
If you don't want to breed or use or do fusion or even grind, you can find stat orbs as you
yeah.
explore to power up your monsters. So I just wanted people to be able to find a rhythm they like and keep going with it and get through the game that way. So it's all about choice in that way as well.
Yeah, it's great. It's definitely great to not be forced to do a specific way or like one way or another. Uh, so
Absolutely.
so the Monster Crown recently had its newest update. Can you elaborate a little bit on what was added to the game?
Yeah, so Content Pack 3. So we've had several content packs in early access so far. They're generally spaced about a month apart. And Content Pack 3 was the biggest in that it had two whole new provinces, the Frost Province and the Flowering Province. It had a new dungeon. It had a few new legendary monsters, and it had three new towns. That's Frobeck, Appleton, and Empathy Kingdom. And it's a huge chunk of the island. Basically, when you first started the game in early access, you just had the middle third of the island. So now we've got the eastern third, and what remains is the western third of the island.
Yeah.
And it's got a ton of new monsters, and it's got a new feature called monster riding.
Yes, yes, yes.
Along with a ton of lore that if you're starting to get invested in the world of Monster Crown, you want to learn more about it. You want to learn more about this war everyone's talking about. This content pack has a lot of information about the world, the pack system, the war that happened, while also introducing a few new mysteries that I think are a lot of fun. So it's a very in-depth content pack with a huge amount of content and new music and beautiful pixel art by the guys that I work with, like Alessandro and Eric's. I think it's a content pack I'm truly proud of.
Yeah, yeah. I've been low key writing down notes about the lore, about like you mentioned the war and the like the first pact and all this stuff. Like it's really like I'm a nerd for stuff like that, so that kind of stuff gets me going a little bit.
Excellent. That's great to hear. Something I think a lot of people haven't hooked onto yet is if you look around the world of Monster Crown, there's not a lot of kids and teens.
Yeah, very true. Yeah.
There's very few of them, and it's because, during the war and shortly after it, people weren't really sure that they wanted to have kids in that world because it was a very dangerous place. So only now you're starting to get people adapting to a happier world where is a place that they want to, bring up kids and raise them and that sort of thing. So, yeah, I try to incorporate that sort of thing at every turn, so every part of it is cohesive into the world story, which is the world story and the sense of atmosphere are incredibly important to me.
So, back over to pixel art. Monster Crown has some amazing pixel art, like you said, very reminiscent of the GBC games. How important was it to maintain this sort of style?
That's a great question. And there's a bit of history behind that. When it first started, I was we had an overworld artist, and he left the project, and I didn't understand how things worked with rights and ownership back then. And I was worried they were going to get this revolving door of pixel artists that would devote a bit of time in the beginning and then lose steam and not want to keep up on it. And we'd build out the world, and we keep getting pushed back every time that's what happens. So I said, well, I'll have to do the art. I'll have to get good enough, and I've never been an artist. I'm not good at it. It's not a natural talent. But I'd have to get good enough at the pixel art to do the world myself, because progress is more important than doing things perfect, like we said earlier. So I made the world, and it was good enough for the Kickstarter. I was very happy with it, but then we had the Kickstarter funds and the support from our backers, and then I see this bit of art going around on the internet, and I'm just amazed by it. So I have tracked down the guys behind this art, and they weren't easy to find because they like being anonymous. But I found these guys, and I said, would you contribute to the game? Would you help us bring a few areas up, work on a few tile sets, that sort of thing? They were very eager to help, and actually put in even more effort to go over things with a fire-tooth comb and bring it up to par. So this new visual identity is one that's just, there's where I thought that we could reach, and this is like 8 tiers above, and it's all thanks to these guys. And we never could have reached it without them. I certainly could have never. If I'd studied art for the next 10 years, I would not be on their level. They just have such a perfect sense of vision and style. So every part of the game that doesn't live up to their tile sets instantly stands out. So it became a necessity to get them to go over everything. And they've created a fantastic sense of style, excellent use of color. So it's very important, but it went from being something that I wanted to something that was absolutely mandatory, because anything that's not made by them now stands out like a sore thumb. So I guess you could say it's incredibly important now. It's actually necessary, and these guys are the best I truly believe, when it comes to the style I want for Monster Crown and that everyone seems to love, there's no one else on Earth can do what these guys can do. Not quite. They can come close, but they can't do what these guys can do.
Yeah, you know, you can definitely see from playing the game like the amount of love that was put into the art. Like that's one of the game's strongest features is that it's so like I can imagine this playing this on my Game Boy. Like it's honestly it's great.
That means a lot. Uh, when it comes to the visual looks, the one thing that I've questioned the most since we started development was the resolution.
Mm,
Because we stick to something that's extremely close to Game Boy Advanced screen resolution.
okay.
And some people on computer, like on PC, they want to be able to blow it up more and have the text size be shrunk down and kind of break free from that Game Boy Advance screen barrier. But I've always held tight to it, and maybe if we ever get to do a sequel, I'll revisit it, find some way to keep that authenticity while increasing it. But it's definitely presented challenges with the UI, with the world. But these guys really brought it out and made it look fantastic on that size resolution.
Nice, nice. So what inspired you to integrate a crossbreeding mechanic to the game?
That's a great question. Back back in 2016, it was actually over Christmas 2015. I was playing Xenoblade Chronicles X, and I said, wouldn't it be amazing if like there was kind of a open world sort of monster taming game? It was just a stray thought. And then I also thought, well, how would a crossbreeding system work? Like everyone says that can't be done, but if you were to design a system that did facilitate and allow a really great crossbreeding system, how would you do it?
Mm.
So eventually I thought up a system that we could accomplish that, and I thought it was kind of cool. It would just have slight morphs. So instead of Primagon being totally different, you would see the Will version of it had a bit more of a sturdy body with some additional plates on it to kind of protect it. It was just modified sprites because that was the only way it was going to be feasible with the
Yeah.
amount of sprites that were required. Um, and so I just wanted to basically create a tech demo to put this together and put it out there so other people would say, oh, wow, there is a way to do this. This could be cool. This could be a great game, because I had been playing a lot of monster taming games at the time, and I couldn't find any that satisfied me. I had played to death all the classics that I loved, and I wanted something that just kept going, and that there was more and more to discover, a seemingly infinite number of monsters that you could get your hands on. That's the feel I wanted. So originally this was just going to be a tech demo to get that crossbreeding system out there for people to try.
Hmm.
But as I mentioned earlier, it sort of spiraled into something else. And a big trigger for that was when Shad joined the team. And Shad wanted to do individual, completely new sprites for each different crossbreed. And I thought he was a bit crazy at first, but crazy in an ambitious way.
Yeah.
But it ended up, it ended up working out.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
and somewhere along the line of trying to get a crossbreed tech demo out there to show people, hey, this could be cool, we ended up making a game that I'm giving my absolute all into, and I hope will be a classic one day.
Yeah, it's already a classic in my eyes, man.
Thanks.
So on that note, and I actually have heard some of this, I read some of this in because I've creeped your interviews, and but what inspired the synergy system?
Well, when you're going to promote different parts of game development like Kickstarter Early Access, you end up in a lot of interviews, so it becomes a challenge to always bring something new, some new information or some new perspective, so it doesn't get too boring with the same questions. So the synergy system was one that I wanted to, as I mentioned in other interviews, if I was sticking to a one versus one system, you want to make that more complex, more interesting for people that have grown up with Pokemon. So one thing you can do is you can get more monsters on screen. And, if you look at Zach's Cerulean series, he puts more monsters on screen. He makes it work amazing.
Yeah.
I didn't think I could, even stand alongside him in that capacity. So I said, well, what's the opposite direction? If instead of increasing the amount of monsters, what if you just increase the amount of synergy needed in your system to have monsters come out and interact? And if you think about that from a lore perspective, how a tamer would actually coordinate all their monsters to quickly jump in and out, you would need a high degree of synergy and connection with your monsters to make that happen. So that's where the system came from. And it's so weird because in 2016 when I started to put this together, it must have been 2, 3 months into development. I thought of this synergy system where you could build up these levels that could be consumed or used to power up your attack. I opened up Gmail one day and started writing just a little draft. Sorry about that, my dog barked.
That's okay.
I started to write up just a draft of how this would work, and switching would build up this synergy mechanic.
Yeah.
And I found that at some point in the past 3, 4 years, I had thought up that system already.
Hmm.
And in my Gmail drafts, there was some documents about. I didn't remember it at all, so it's weird. It's like phantom previous me had thought up this system, and I thought it was totally new each time. But I guess I agreed with myself that I thought it was a good idea. So we ended up putting it into the system, and that's the thing I didn't mention before. So hopefully that's kind of funny for people to hear that 2 independent times I invented, with quotes, invented the synergy system.
Well, there you go. Yeah, it definitely adds a more of a high risk, high reward sort of aspect to the game too. And
Yeah.
some of the effects, like this is one thing I mentioned actually in a video I made, but because every monster is monotyped and each type has one weakness and one strength, the dual type attacks actually become like realistically possible. Because in Pokemon, if you had, let's say Muddy Water was a dual typed attack, right? So it'd be
Right.
ground and water, and you hit a Macargo with that. You're looking at, well, it's times four, it's 2 times 4, so you're just doing a ridiculous amount of damage, but you don't run into that problem. So like with some of those synergy attacks having like that additional typing, it actually makes the it actually works really well.
Thank you for that. Thanks for saying that. Originally, the system was going to be a good bit more complex, but instead of 4 levels, there was going to be 6,
Yeah.
and you would only build up synergy by switching to a monster that was the same type of attacker. So
Yes.
if you had a
Yes.
physical attacker, yeah, you would have to switch to a physical attacker to build up synergy. But what I found, it was just a lot of unneeded complexity,
Yeah.
and it wasn't increasing the amount of fun that mechanic actually was.
Mm. So this sort of goes on to the next. What inspired the and I put this in quotes just so people understand what I'm talking about. The evolution system, i.e., super grow, atomic clock, perfect synergy, etc.
Well, actually, originally, I wanted something. We didn't have abilities in Monster Crown, like
Hmm.
similar to Pokemon. But I thought that I had this memory of as a kid learning all about the weather system in
Yeah.
Pokemon, and from I think Earl is his name in Pokemon Stadium 2, and he teaches you about all the interactions between sunny day
Oh, okay.
and rainy day, that sort of thing. Uh, so originally we had an idea for weather, but I didn't just want to do rain and sun again. I didn't want to do storms and hail. So I
Yeah.
had programmed in this mist status that you would run into in Dew Cave. And so like Mist, well, Laz is on stable type and he's kind of like based on mold. So he would get an increased speed in
Oh,
Mist.
okay.
But it just didn't seem interesting. It seemed like it just sort of a copycat mechanic. And then I was thinking about the other great games from that era that inspired me, and other great series. And I started thinking about like things that actually change the field, like in Yu-Gi-Oh.
Hmm.
You got like Toon World, that
Yeah.
sort of thing. And it triggers these transformations, and I thought that was such a great idea. And I felt like the same people that grew up with Pokemon are looking for something more serious. They would have other shared history with me. They would have things like, they grew up with Beyblade, Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah.
They had these binders of cards. So it seemed like a really cool idea. And I was trying to think it up just before the Kickstarter, and it was like 3 or 4 days before the Kickstarter, and I said, well, let's just get rid of. I remember it actually. I was looking at some notes on my phone. Let's get rid of the weather system, and let's have these field effects.
Hmm.
And I imagined that players would trigger a field effect that would affect the whole field. So you would activate Super Grow, and that would cause your monsters to grow.
Hmm.
But if your opponent then activated the atomic clock, your monsters would ungrow, and then the atomic clock transformation would kick in. So you would have this power struggle back and forth.
Oh, okay.
But I I just felt like that would end up with just a struggle of people back and forth using items, and it wouldn't be much fun. It'd be kind of just stalling.
Yeah.
So I had the actual transformation items when used in battle only affect your side of the field.
Hmm.
And that might be something we revisit in a sequel if we're ever lucky enough to do one. But I wanted this evolution system to be our weather. And when I was done thinking it up, I thought, well, that's way more interesting. I'd
Yeah.
way rather use some sort of plant super grow than a rainy day, something that actually triggers a transformation. And mid-battle transformation is something I think we've always wanted
Yeah.
since the old Pokemon games, and seeing it in the anime and that sort of thing. So it felt like such a great fit. Now it meant it would multiply the work required, because if we're
Yeah.
gonna have these transformations, I don't want to just have transformation in battle, because like we had back in 2013, 2014, X and Y came out with Mega Evolution.
Yeah.
And I thought these Mega Evolutions were so cool, but I could never truly own them.
Yeah.
They were only transitory.
Yeah.
They would only exist for the duration of battle. And I'm a collector. I want to collect all of them.
Yeah.
I'm not joking. I'm going to catch them all. And there's no two ways about it. So that just frustrated me, because now there was this version of that Pokemon that I could not have.
Yeah.
So I knew they had to work outside of battle. And if you let's say Gorjam. I'm trying to think of one of the transformations that actually changes the property of the monster. Like say Jungro.
Okay.
Jungro Super Grow becomes a different version of Jungro. So I could have just gave it the same offspring and children, but I mean, come on. Our fans are hardcore. The people attracted to this game, they're serious. They've been waiting their whole lives for super serious Monster Taming games. They're not going to settle for that. They demand more and they deserve more. So we're going to give each of those transformation monsters their own set of crossbreeds as well.
Oh shoot! Holy
We're
crap.
just going to do... I said, I don't know if I'm going to survive this. I might die with just like pixels printed into my eyeballs.
Yeah, because a lot of people watching might not know, but if you're like me and you like to comb the Discord for keywords, you'll know that Jason's mentioned other transformations, like ones that we haven't really seen much of, like Burning Sky, Book of the Dead. Like there's so many transformations.
There are, and Burning Sky is an interesting one, because it's one that we are not going to talk much about publicly before the game comes out, and it'll be a bit of a surprise. But Burning Sky is supposed to represent an alternate future, a possible future that could exist. Yeah, where shit gets apocalyptic, and like the world is coming to an end. The sun has grown, and so there's this red burning ball in the sky, and the earth is kind of scorched, and maybe there's no humans left, and all that's left is monsters. So how would the monsters have transformed in that future? And I kind of imagine a bit like a holy war sort of thing happening with all these monsters. So if you use it and you have Hermes out, Hermes is this little beetle that has a bolt on its back.
Yeah.
That it can stab into other monsters, which is based on actually bed bugs in real life. Well, when you use the Burning Sky and Hermes is out there, Hermes is going to turn into this large armored beetle that has like this gigantic bolt that's ready to take to the skies and do battle against like all the other end game sort of monsters that would exist in that sort of future. So that's the kind of creativity and dreaming we're trying to put into this, and saying, well, the Hermes that's evolved at that point, it's not going to have the same genetics. It's going to be different. So we need to create different crossbreeds for that as well.
And if I'm not...
great example.
Oh, so sorry. Continue.
Oh, that's all right. I just wanted to say one more thing, is that the Apo, if you breed Apo, you have can I just bring up the list right here, because I've got them right in front of me, and I'm sure there's some people that will be dying to see what's in front of me right now. But you got Apo, and you got a form that's like an elephant, a form that's like a giraffe, a form that's like a crocodile. Well, when you use the super grow on them, they turn into like a war elephant and a war giraffe. That's kind of like a large Trojan horse, So that's the kind of that's what the breeding system is all about, and we just want to pack every bit of this full of imagination, so people are wowed, and ideally every time people say, well, they couldn't have gone that far, they actually find, yeah, we did. That's what I want to make people feel. To surprise those veterans is not easy, but it's what I dreamed of.
The amount of depth is just like that. That's one that's like I remember the first time I ever heard about Monster Crown, and like I just got into the monster taming scene about a year ago now. I can't believe it's been a year. Jesus. About a year
Wow.
ago now, and I found out about Monster Crown through a video that I saw on YouTube, and I remember when I believe the video mentioned like crossbreeds. I was like, holy crap! Like how? Like how is all this stuff happening?
Oh, I'm glad I made you feel that way because you're an example of one of those veterans that's been around the genre block.
Yep.
And it's you've kind of seen it all. And I think that when you get into your 20s, a lot of people they get kind of dysphoric with games because they feel like they've seen it all.
Yeah.
So the bar is very high if you want to surprise these people, but the rewards are huge because if you can actually surprise them and make them say, "Oh shit, I don't know how this works," or
Yeah.
"Oh shit, that's," what you're doing is you're surprising that little inner child that they still are. For a moment, they're 9 years old again, booting up their Game Boy, finding
Yep.
something they don't understand. And there's no greater privilege than be able to make people feel that way again, to
Yeah.
to let them dream in that way. So, whatever it takes that I can hopefully make people feel that way.
Oh yeah, for sure. This actually goes into my next question, and I'm assuming you probably don't have an exact number just because of like the sheer amount of depth. But do you know roughly how many monsters, I guess excluding crossbreeds, are going to be included in the final game?
Yeah, it's going to be a little north of 200.
Okay,
So it's going to be a little more than 200, but less than 210.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then with all the crossbreeds, it's going to be insane. 'Cause
Don't remind me, my
monster
hand
has
is
at
like...
least 5 forms, at least, and then, well, I guess 6 forms because you have the base form and the crossbreed forms.
Yeah, my hand is clenching up just thinking about it. It's like
Plus,
it's the biggest part of development for
plus
sure.
transformations, plus transformation crossbreeds. So if anyone's looking for a game with a lot of monsters,
We got a lot of monsters. Well, I hope that at the end of this game I can say that we have the strongest pack of pixel monster designs available in one place.
yeah,
That
yeah,
retro pixel aesthetic. I'm hoping that there's no other game in the world can beat us on sheer numbers of quality designs. And we put a lot of effort into design. I've studied it for years,
yeah.
hoping to get things right. I hope we succeed.
I,
Or die
I love the
trying.
monster crown designs. Like especially, I'm a big fan of Gridag and Dracoil. Those are my two boys.
Thanks. There's a lot of dinosaur inspired designs in here.
Yeah, yeah,
And I do something. I don't know if the other developers in the genre are going to admit to this, or maybe they're smarter than me and they don't do it. But I feel incredibly drawn to know what everyone's saying about Monster Crown out there, even like the little stray comments that they probably think the developer will never see.
yeah,
But I saw a comment I think about a year ago where someone said, "Oh, man, I just saw the designs for Monster Crown, and one was like a blob dinosaur and the other one was a slightly different blob dinosaur." And I was like, man, okay, so I'll resist the urge to dislike that comment, downvote it, report it. I won't do that.
cancel them.
I'm about to plant some evidence on this guy's computer. No, but it's just that drives me because when people complain about your game, they're giving you a gift. They're
Yeah.
saying, "I need you to fix this. I need," they might say it in a negative way, and you need thick skin to be able to take it, but
Yeah,
you should try to respond to those things and put your all into it.
yeah,
So, monster design is something I think about for many hours every single day.
yeah, yeah. I can imagine. The next question I have here is, and I think this is actually a pretty interesting question, especially given the fact that I'm pretty new to the monster taming community. How has a monster taming community evolved over the years since you started developing Monster Crown? Have you noticed any differences in terms of, I guess, acceptance or lack thereof towards monster taming games?
I do, but maybe not in the way that one might think. It's easy to imagine that over the years we had a gradual growth of acceptance.
Hmm.
But the truth is, from 2015, at the very end of 2015, when I was only thinking about Monster Crown, I hadn't even drawn the first sprite yet. From then up until, start of 2019, you were just getting called a Pokemon clone.
Yeah.
I mean, if they were nice,
Yeah.
usually they'd call you a Pokemon ripoff or a
Yeah.
soulless rehash or a
Yeah.
cash grab. And so there wasn't that sort of gradual change, even in 2018. That's mostly what I saw. It was a lot of work to get people. You wanted to become so good or have your screenshots look so good
Yeah.
that people would fight that instinct.
Yeah.
And I didn't actually see an actual change in that instinct until the the Dex cut
Yeah. Yeah. No, seriously.
controversy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then suddenly it became this very gradual growth where people started to say, you know what, I'm willing to try other monster taming games, and Temtem was a big part of that because
Yes.
alongside the Dex cut, I think just before there was also this big push to give Temtem a try, and I
Yeah.
think a lot of their marketing focused on that.
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
definitely.
yeah, so now you're seeing real progress on it, and I think developers entering the genre now have a lot more benefit of the doubt than we had a few years ago. It was pretty rough.
Yeah. I mean, even for me, like, I had never even thought of the concept of other monster taming games. Like, it never even crossed my mind. Like, the only other like games I could even think of that were not even monster taming games, just similar, were like games like Final Fantasy and stuff, just turn-based combat. But I never thought that, there'd be other games where I could go catch and collect monsters and battle them, right? Like, before, if you would ever think of a game like that, the initial thought would be, oh, like those, like those Facebook games that are literally Pokemon, but they like slightly change stuff. And I think games like that also caused like a big sort of prejudice against monster taming games.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember back in 98, 99, 2000, you'd see the competing titles and people thought they were just a Pokemon ripoff. I mean, to me, as a kid, I was just thinking like, oh no, more monsters to collect. How bad? Like, how could this be a negative? I get to
Yeah,
tame more
yeah.
monsters. But there was a lot of bootlegs back then. You could go. I remember going to the dollar store and you would see like a pack of bubbles or a rip-off Beyblade with green-haired Trunks from Dragon Ball Z on the cover. Like giving it the aggressive thumbs up. Like there was so much of
Oh
this.
yeah.
I don't know if it was primarily from China where they just didn't care about the IP laws, but it got over here into the dollar stores, into those markets, into the flea markets. And I think that was, you could call those actual ripoffs because they were
Yeah, oh yeah,
literally
literally,
taking the
yeah.
intellectual property. And I think there was so much of that of Pokemon back then. I think that's where the ripoff came from. I don't think it was so much people in the late 2000s and the 2010s deciding things were a ripoff. I think in the beginning days there was a real fear of ripoffs because there were literal ripoffs. But it's a bit unfair to paint all monster taming games with that brush. But
Yeah.
it's really interesting to me that your first exposure to monster taming games and your only for a long time was Pokemon,
Yeah,
even though you
yeah.
knew about turn-based games in general.
Yeah. It's kind of funny you mentioned the dollar store. I guess my favorite rip-off experience was my brother used to get Yu-Gi-Oh cards from the dollar store. And
Yeah,
so I had actual Yu-Gi-Oh cards, but they're obviously more expensive. So my brother's like, "Oh, I can get more cards if I go to the dollar store." The funny thing about the Yu-Gi-Oh cards from the dollar store was that they're the same Yu-Gi-Oh, like they're the same monsters, but they're all just messed up. Like, they have messed up descriptions and messed up attack. Like, okay, so there's this I don't remember what its actual values are, but there's this it's like 7 colored fish, and I'm
yeah,
pretty sure it has like six. I'm probably gonna be wrong in the exact number, but somewhere in the 1000s in terms of its attack points. Well,
yep.
this one had 16,000 attack points or something. Like,
Oh my
they added
God!
the extra
Wow.
zero. I
I
just I just remember him pulling that out and being like, "Yeah, I win the duel."
wow. Extra awesome edition.
Yeah, they're
That
just
was you were
totally
you were
fake.
buying Magic Ruler and he was buying Extra Awesome Edition. Legend of the Blue Eyes White Dragon, and this guy's got the Legend of the Seven Colored Fish. But yeah, I never bought those because I heard back then when I was a kid, I wouldn't. Our family didn't have a lot of money, so we would very rarely be able to get cards. A
Yeah,
lot of times around Christmas, but I heard that there was some local stores that would weigh the booster packs, and they knew for Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh cards exactly the like micrograms
Oh my
of
god.
the ones that had the ultra rares and holographics in them.
Yeah.
So they would buy those out of the pack and sell the rest, which was pretty unfair to the kids. But I assume those in the dollar store were ones that had already had those good ones extracted.
Mm.
I didn't know that they were totally fraudulent.
Yeah, some of them are completely fake. Like even the
Wow.
coloration's slightly off.
Wow.
Okay, so to get back on topic a little bit here, so Monster Crown features an overall darker tone than most monster taming games. How important was this aspect, and can we expect to see more people getting jaspered moving forward? Oh, and I guess I'll add to that. So, are you gonna make a specific encounter with a field that has Jasper's leg sticking out of his mouth? One of the fans in the Discord messaged me asking this.
Wow. That's a loaded question. All right, let me see. I'll start at the beginning, I guess. It does have a darker tone, and that comes from me actually imagining a world where monsters would have a reason to join people, and people would have a reason to join monsters when monsters weren't just really big pets.
Yeah.
And something that always kind of creeped me out is when you throw a Pokeball at a Pidgey, the Pidgey is fighting for its life to get out.
Yeah.
I mean, I think in lore they actually secretly want it or something, which sounds a bit odd. But
Yeah.
anyway, in the games and the early anime that I'm familiar with, they would be fighting to get out until they were literally too weak to escape.
Yeah.
And then next time you throw them out, they're on your side. They're your friends.
Yeah.
So it seems like there's some really weird captive brainwashing going on. And I've never been into that whole PETA, Pokemon as violence thing. I think it's all cool to catch the Pokemon, but I just wasn't sure how psychologically that worked, which is probably reading too much into it.
Yeah, no, you know what? I'm the type of person, I used to take Pokemon like at its face, and every time I'd find like a weird sort of thing like that. Like, okay, here's a good example. Sorry to kind of cut in, but
no, go ahead.
Here's a good example. So I think the Pokedex is complete bullshit. I don't believe anything they say. Like, people are like, oh, you have to follow the lore. If Alakazam has an IQ of 5,000, what benefit does it have to join up with a trainer? How is the human... Because the whole point is that the Pokemon aren't as smart as humans, and the humans use Pokemon... Like the humans are good at, like, directing them, and that's sort of, like, where the mutual relationship comes with. The Pokemon... If you've ever played Pokemon Emerald, there's a battle... in the battle frontier, there's a area where the Pokemon get to fight for themselves, and they just use random attacks, because the Pokemon don't understand strategy. So the whole point is that the mutual part comes from, the humans are smart and they can provide strategy, and the Pokemon, well, they can protect the humans. But then you have Pokemon like Alakazam that are said to have an IQ of 5,000. Where's the mutual relationship there?
Yeah. But also you've described yourself now as Gym Leader Ed, the Pokemon conspiracy theorist.
That's true.
You're the guy in the Pokemon world saying, I don't believe what they write in that Pokedex. That's all Poke propaganda.
It's just a theory, a conspiracy theory.
Exactly. So, okay, all right. As long as we've established that you're a conspiracy theorist, Gym Leader, Gym Leader Ed, I write a lot of lore too for the Monster Crown entries. Like, sometimes I go on too long with the lore, which is going to be a localization nightmare, but that's something that's always in the back of my mind, that people say that that's not the real lore, that's just what a kid thinks.
Yeah.
But as for Monster Crown, the reason that they join you is because if you consider a Windy Province monster, it's never ever going to navigate across the Desperado Province, survive through the Frost Province, and get to the Flowering Province to take on a Honey.
Yeah.
That may have different strategies, different things to go up against. So it likes the benefit of travel, because ultimately it wants to become very experienced and outclass everyone in its native territory. Just like animals in real life, these monsters want to become the alpha of their local area, so they have the most access to resource, mates, that sort of thing. And that's what they get from taming. And so initially they're with you for very business transaction reasons. You're going to strengthen them, and if you don't strengthen them, they're going to get a bit rowdy, and they might want to no longer work under you and help you achieve your goals. Now, thankfully, that's not something that happens in the game, but you do see a bit of that in the world, especially in
Yes.
Appleton.
Yes, I was about to. I was thinking of that. That there's a whole building dedicated to that.
Yeah, yeah. So the example is the Gandit, who has a sword. There's a very small sword holding monster,
Hmm.
and it's helping the guy filleting the fish. Um,
I remember
and
this.
yeah, and the guy's like, "Why isn't this?" And this is very at home for me because like my dad was a fisherman, and I grew up around the fishing boats and stuff like that, and so I could totally see someone back home in my small fishing community wanting to use a monster to help them out with their craft like that. But that's not what monsters want. They don't want to get better at slicing fish. They want to get better at slicing other monsters. So this Scandid is having a bit of a crisis that it wants to go back to the wilds. And the fisherman's like, "What's this problem? I offered it a pack. Like, what more does it want?"
I love it.
Hopefully that helps drive forward that difference a bit more in what a monster is looking for versus what a Pokemon is looking for in that partnership.
Hmm.
As for more people getting Jasper, there are a few more people that get killed, but for very important story reasons,
Ah,
not
okay.
because they happen to wander into the wild, because the Jasper situation is very much to set the tone that this is a dangerous world. Um, and let me ask you a question. So, ever since I put in that blood, I've regretted it. Ever since the first time, and I've had people like, I've seen edits of the trailer that like really like zoom in like on the blood, and it's like, well, look, it's a dark world, and I want it to be clear that Jasper got killed,
Yeah.
but I'm not crazy about blood. Like I'm not gritty edgy like, oh, I want the walls to drip with blood and
Yeah,
like
yeah.
creepy path like hyper realistic blood. So I'm thinking that blood pool, I think I might just make it not so red and make it just kind of dark.
Oh, I think you mentioned that. I think I remember you mentioning that.
Maybe I did, but what do you think about that? Do you like seeing that or would like a dark pool spreading kind of get the idea across without being? What do you
Uh,
think?
I personally I like the blood.
Okay.
I don't know. You know what it is? I think for me, when he got killed, it was like it was a shock factor, right?
Right.
Like for example, in Temtem, a spoiler alert if anybody's watching for the Kisiwa update, you're warned. Skip a few seconds if you don't want to get spoiled. But your rival gets pushed off a cliff, and you don't really get to see what happens. Now, I don't know if your rival's actually dead. He does have a bird on his party, so maybe he's going to use it to fly away. But
Really?
yeah, but he gets pushed off a cliff because he's working with the evil team, and like they're telling the evil team's like the leader is telling them to go and start killing people. And the kid's like, no, I'm not going to do that. And he's like, okay. And he pushes them off a cliff. But I like that we actually got to see what happened to Jasper. And it added like to the shock value too, right? Whereas when Max gets pushed off a cliff, you're like, well, I don't know if he's dead.
Right.
That
makes sense.
I remember my reaction to it was I think it was my reaction was gold. I was like, wait, what happened? He just died.
I had someone come to me shortly after that and said, "You know what would be really cool? If later on in the game you could fight Jasper, who has like survived and mastered the Efeel and has a team of Efeel." And I just felt so bad because it's like this guy's still holding on to that hope that it's like a Pokemon-esque world, and that might work out. So the blood didn't even drive it home.
Or just
So
having a feel with you know it'd be great, and a feel with a bone in its mouth and oh, I love it.
okay, you got to tell me, what did you're really relishing in the violence here. I got to ask you, what did you do to that Jungro? The quest with the Jungro where the Jungro's there with the hurt baby and the healthy baby.
Oh, I saved it.
You saved the.
I'm pretty sure I saved it. Yeah,
that's a relief.
I did a 5-hour stream when early access went live, so I could comb through it. I don't exactly remember, but I'm pretty sure I helped it out.
Okay, that's good.
See, it was okay because it happened to a human. You can't hurt the monsters, you know.
So at least we won't call you gym leader, conspiracy theorist, sadistic Ed. We'll just stick with the first two for now.
Part-time sadistic.
Part-time. Gotcha.
So this was also asked by Michael, but it was also a question I came up with. What are your plans post Monster Crown?
Oh boy, I'm gonna sleep for like 6 months straight. This has been there's been times I've been very sick and very drained
Yeah.
over the period of this development, and I think I'm not gonna fully realize how exhausted I've been at times until this is all over and I finally start to mentally rest and every thought is not leading back to Monster Crown. I've kind of trained my mind to go back to Monster Crown. Like, okay, I can't enjoy playing games anymore, but I've managed to hack my brain that sitting down and doing some Monster Crown art makes me feel like games used to make me feel. And I'll be sitting down watching TV and suddenly I'm thinking about Monster Crown. It's like I've trained every part of my brain to come back to Monster Crown, which is wonderful for getting work done, but not wonderful for being a human being, really.
Yeah.
At least
Yeah.
a mentally healthy one.
No, it's
So I'm
extremely
gonna.
relatable.
Yeah, you're much the same.
Yeah, like okay, so despite the common I guess thought, I'm a monster taming YouTuber, but I also like games that aren't monster taming, right? But anytime
Right.
I'm doing something that doesn't specifically pertain to my YouTube channel, I almost get like a little bit of guilt.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
know
Like,
what
oh,
you
I
mean.
could be getting stuff done, but I'm not. So like if
Right.
anytime I'm playing a game, like I have to like unless it's specifically for a video or specifically for a let's play or something like that, I feel like I'm just like overindulging and I'm not getting any work done.
Yeah, I can see what you mean, but one perspective I'd have for you that I don't have for myself is like if I'm a husk of a human being, barely left any of me besides the part that writes code and puts together Monster Crown. Monster Crown gets done,
Yeah.
and Monster Crown is still like if I optimize myself to be the best person to create Monster Crown still gets done.
Yeah.
But if you don't take care of yourself and let yourself have other experiences, the funny guy that's entertaining to listen to, that has interesting perspectives, that Ed is not gonna exist. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
if you don't get your fulfillment, have some fun, like the guy that people want to watch, that they love and that they laugh with, like that person's not gonna exist. So
Yeah.
I think you got to look after yourself, even in ways that I don't.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I've actually, I mean, I upload every day, but I was uploading twice a day, so that happens less often now. So, so like I have been sort of dialing it back a little bit. I haven't been doing as many scripted videos. I've been trying to sort of like, put more time into the really good scripted videos and spend like some of the other days like showcasing new games or just playing and stuff like that. So I've definitely dialed it back a little bit.
That's good. You got to take care of your mental health,
Yeah,
especially
yeah,
now
exactly.
with everything going on with COVID.
Yeah.
Like mental health is at a premium more
Yep.
than ever.
Oh, for sure. Okay, so we got some fan questions now. I also have a question at the end that I ask everyone, but we'll save that till the end. But so we got some fan questions, and I selected a few from the Discord, and the first one was asked by Marcel, the developer of Koromon, and he asks, "What did it mean for your project when you signed up with Soadesco?" If you guys don't know, Soadesco is their publisher. Pretty cool guys, actually. I've had a few back and forths with them. They're pretty cool.
Yeah, pretty cool. I was like, there's other people in this genre that have game experience that have been in the industry for a while. They've seen a release. Like they know what kind of sales numbers to expect. They know what kind of profits to expect. They know when you're spending a reasonable amount, and they know when you're overspending on asset creation and stuff in a way that you're not going to make the money back in the end.
Yeah.
Like these people have this expertise, this longevity, and I'm still just this guy fiddling with Unity, I guess.
Yeah.
That somehow it seems like things might go well. So signing with Tedesco is, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what it was like to work with a publisher. I didn't really know if Tedesco was big or small or medium. I had no frame of reference. But they had a big interest in the project, and just from having seen it during the Kickstarter, they had an interest in the project. And to me, like, I had big dreams for pushing it to a higher level of quality.
Hmm.
So they were ready to stand by it 100% when it looked as it did during the Kickstarter, when it was just my art. So they saw something in it, and I guess maybe they saw something in me. And I think they've been really happy with seeing it actually become even bigger than they expected
Yeah.
with regards to quality, the amount of monsters in it, that sort of thing. So it was definitely a very mutually beneficial relationship, and they're there to provide a lot of support. Um, Basically, a publisher is fantastic for extending your reach. So not so much like your reach with views, but you've got two arms,
Yeah.
and you can draw things, you can code things, you can type to people, you can message, you can respond to requests. Well, they're kind of there to amplify what those two arms can do.
Hmm.
So you're sending out reverberations to the publisher you're working with of the support you want and how you want to be helped, how
Hmm.
you want to be extended. Um, and they've had a lot of great ideas as well, and a lot of encouragement definitely along the way. I've worked with some excellent producers. Some of our fans know Junie, who was a huge help in development
Hmm.
and acting as a producer. And we have our current producer, Blossom, is great too. Um, she was actually a backer before
Oh.
she ever went to Sedesco. So I was like, man, that's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Someone backed and believed in the project and then ends up working with it. Well, I know they're not lying. And I know they're not lying when they say they like something or like the project. Like they're not just they're not just blowing me with hot air or anything. So that's definitely great. But yeah, they've been fantastic support, and I look forward to the full release with them. Me and them have had some secrets up our sleeves for a long time
Ooh.
that I think are really going to make fans happy. Um, so yeah, it's been a positive move. It's definitely been a good one, and I can't wait to see how it pans out with release. And they've got a lot of passionate people over there. There's some things I want to do that are kind of auxiliary to
Yeah.
Monster Crown that kind of go along with it or release with it, and they're sometimes enthusiastic about things before I even think of them that end up being just great ideas. So
Yeah.
they're definitely fantastic.
That's great. Next question is asked by Cirque, and I actually really like this question. How long does your friendship with Zach go? Zach being the developer of the Serialum series, and how did you guys meet?
That is a good question. It goes back a really, really long time. Um, in 2016, when I started development, I wanted to research other indie entries in the genre because I hadn't heard of any other indie monster taming games, and probably because they much like you, I hadn't
Yeah.
heard of any other indie entries. I wasn't really invested in the indie scene. Um, so when I searched, I found three. I found Collectums, which was in development and originally bound for the Vita, that the
Hmm.
Vita fans were very fascinated by. We had Evo Creo, which
Yes.
had a very small Kickstarter and came out, I believe, in app form. That looked pretty cool. And then we had Zach, who was the developer of Serialum. And Zach was a bit hard to track down because I think Zach is a guy that likes to let the product stand for itself. So
Hmm.
he gives his all into Serialum, and Serialum's out there, but like you don't see Zach doing a lot of interviews or trying to shine a spotlight on himself. He's all about Serialum, and I really respect that. But seeing that he was the one that actually not only had he released a game, he had released a series. Serialum 1 and 2 was out at that time, and they were on consoles. And I was like,
Yeah.
man, Zach's the real deal. Zach is like, Zach's my hero. Like he's everything that I am too shy to ever believe I could be. So I try to track down Zach. And I just want to talk to the guy. Like,
Yeah.
okay, so we get this mythical guy that releases Serialum. So I find his subreddit, and he posts a few things on the Vita subreddit, stuff like that. And I message him and I say, hey Zach, I really love what you're doing. Would you ever consider mentoring me?
Yeah.
And I don't know if Zach had ever gotten something like that, and I thought maybe he would think, well, I get lots of requests to mentor people, buddy. That's the kind of thing that I was worried about, and I didn't know if maybe you were supposed to pay mentors, and I had no money, but anyway, he got back to me and he wanted to talk, and he gave me his personal email, and
Mm.
we touched base, and I just told him that I was just ecstatic about it. I tried Cerealim 1, but I was in a similar position as you, where I felt too guilty to sit down and play a lot of games because
Yeah.
I had this project I wanted to get out there. And Zach made so much time to sit and chat with me. And I wanted to interview him on my channel. To like, my channel was so much smaller than his in every way, in my whole presence. But I wanted anyone that potentially could hear about my project and not have heard about Zach's, I wanted them to know about Zach. So we had him on the little interview series I used to do that
Yeah.
you very much are the sequel series to these days.
The bestiary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this was even before Bestiary, actually. This was way back. I think maybe
Oh.
only in 2016 or 2017 on my channel.
Oh,
And he
okay.
was such a great guy. He wasn't afraid to share just details and advice. And I think sometimes people see each other as like threats or competitors, but
Mm.
Zach was never like that. He was a fantastic friend, and we've worked together many times on the Bestiary podcast, on the Cerealim 3 port to Nintendo Switch, and we've got a lot of. I think that 10 years from now we'll have collaborated in even more and bigger ways than we could have ever imagined. And I'm so grateful to have him as a friend, because he didn't have to have the time for me at all, but he did. And I'm
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
like, the guy's got a franchise.
Yeah. Yeah.
No other way to cut it. He's got a franchise. He's still my hero in that regard.
I'm pretty sure he has physical releases too. I don't
Oh,
wanna,
yeah.
I don't want to say this for sure, but I'm almost positive my cousin told me he found Cerealim 2, the actual cartridge, and I was really jealous.
I think he's done some stuff with limited run games. I don't know if
Yeah.
he's done things with others, but he's done that for sure. There are physical copies, which is
Yeah,
just amazing.
I was jealous because I downloaded Cerealim 2 on Vita, but my cousin tracked down the the actual physical copy.
Wow, that's cool. I imagine Zach must have like a room full of them. Just like, I know I would. I'd have a huge stockpile of my own. Like, I'd be my own #1 fan with buying copies of my game.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's awesome. Actually, Cerealim's beta is gonna start in about I believe on the 12th. So that's gonna be exciting. I gotta try to I gotta try to get Zach on after that goes live.
I'm sure he'd be happy to. So yeah, and I wish him best of luck with that beta. I hear his alpha's been going really great.
Oh yeah. All right, so this question's asked by Barry, and he asks why rainbow specifically for shinies, or I guess for the shiny equivalent.
Yeah, so back in 2016 when we first started, I wanted to have something fun to find like shinies, but no special coloration would ever be valuable, because you can breed any color on any monster, so
Yeah.
it literally could never be special. At least by the time you're done the game.
Makes
The
sense,
legendaries, they have special palettes, but they're easy to get around, and when it comes to online trading and stuff like that. So I thought, well, the only way to make it special is to try to take that next step with the next logical step. Let's have one that are rainbow. Like, the properties of their skin reflect and refract light in a fluxing pattern. And it can't be inherited. And so that's really the background behind the brilliants, which in my game are the equivalent of shinies. Some people think that they're a little too common, with the rate being 1 in 1,000. Compared to Pokemon.
I found one, but I didn't have any packs.
That's depressing. It's the only thing worse than that is when they spawn outside of range, like where you can't get to them.
That's
the worst. But yeah, so I knew that was the only special palette that we could possibly have in the game was something fluxing.
The mechanic
and
behind
yeah,
it's
so
cool.
the rate is pretty low. It's 1 in 1,000, or pretty high. It's 1 in 1,000, which is a lot higher than Pokemon's older 1 in 8,000. I think it's 1 in 4,000 now.
Yeah.
But I figured, well, if people are going to play Monster Crown, because we're not Pokemon, it might be reasonable to consider a Monster Crown fan playing Monster Crown an eighth as often as Pokemon.
Yeah.
So, I want people to be thrilled just as often per hour spent play as they would with Pokemon. And it seems to be high enough that there's a lot of people that play for the first time, and within an hour or two of playing, they they encounter one. And it feels even higher because when you have overworld encounters, you can see them on the map.
Yeah.
You know, you're not hitting each random encounter. But I've seen people so thrilled by it, so blown away, that I stand by the decision of the 1 in 1,000. You know, till my dying breath.
I like it. I'm happy with it. I hate shiny hunting, so I'm happy.
I'm, I'm glad. Did you get any shinies after?
No, so what happened was I believe I got a clip of it. Oh, yeah, it's in one of my videos. I can't remember which. It might have been one of the content pack guides. But
Okay.
yeah, you see it on screen. But it was a Primagon. It was near the beginning of the game. I had, yeah.
Gotcha.
But
That's too bad.
yeah,
I'm
it's
sure
okay.
you'll find
I'll find
another.
one. And when you breed them, if I'm not mistaken, the palette of the offspring, if it's a secondary parent, becomes random. If I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, so the idea behind that is because their skin color is constantly in flux, what it refracts. I kind of imagined it like when they breed, they're passing down a snapshot of that single moment
Mm,
of what color they were. So like it's as if an aspect of their genes is constantly in flux, so they
yeah,
do pass down a random palette.
I love
And I
it.
thought that was pretty fun.
So it's basically, is it basically I'm not 100% sure how the palettes work, but is there basically like a list of palettes in the game, or are the palettes completely randomized?
There's a list of palettes in the game, but if you flux through those palettes, it won't be smooth. It'll be a weird flicker
Mm,
because, you know, each monster has a highly tailored palette. They don't follow a great rainbow spectrum.
yeah.
So the actual brilliant monsters, they do have a unique rainbow palette that fluxes through the palettes,
Oh,
but
okay.
what they pass down is one specific palette from the list.
Okay, it makes sense. I figured that's how it worked, because if you had like if the palette was completely randomized, like I've delved in ROM hacking quite a bit, and if you use a weird looking palette, the monster won't have the proper outline and stuff like that. So I figured there was like a set list of palettes like that the game has, or whatever. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so oh, that's a good question. Bloba asks, why did you decide to go with overworld monster encounters?
Well, at the time, Pokemon didn't have them, and ever since I was, I guess 13, 14 years old, maybe 15, when Dragon Quest 8 came out and started to get a lot of promotion, you could see the monsters on the overworld, and I
Yeah.
was so blown away by that. And then later they did it in Dragon Quest Monsters Joker.
Hmm.
I thought that was so cool, and I wished Pokemon did it, and they didn't. They hadn't at the time. So I said, well, I'll give it a try. I know it'll be hard to make work in 2D because 2D has certain limitations that 3D doesn't,
Yeah.
especially when you're dealing with very large monsters.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to crush everything down to one tile size. I let the big monsters be big.
Yeah.
So yeah, it just seemed like back then I know that I had a bit of an idea too, that whenever I wasn't sure which option to pick for implementation, random encounters or the large overworld encounters, I couldn't remove my own bias and be 100% sure that I wasn't picking an option because it was lazy or easy.
Mm.
So like the natural want to do random encounters because it's easy, much
Yeah.
easier to program,
Yeah.
less to fight with, stuff like that. So I kind of made a rule for myself during that first year of development that whenever I came across a choice and I wasn't sure, I'd pick the harder one to
Yeah.
make sure I was not going easy on myself or being biased towards the lazy option. And that was definitely an example of that.
Yeah, you know what? It pays off. Like it's one of those things. Like once you go with those overworld encounters, like you just can't go back to the old way of things. Like, for example, if I play another monster taming game and I'm in a cave, and every 5 seconds I'm in a battle, I'm like, oh, I wish they had overworld encounters.
And in a cave, you can run into anything anywhere, but on the overworld, in Pokemon games, you don't run into things unless you're standing in the grass. So I didn't want to have you walking through rustling grass because it
Yeah.
felt too much like Pokemon.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to have the random encounters be everywhere like in caves because
Yeah,
that's annoying.
exactly.
So yeah.
No, it's perfect. And you know what? It's one of those things where like in Pokemon, there could be a shortcut that requires a cave, but you don't even want to take it because you don't want to get in battles or use repels.
Right.
But you know, if I want to go through Dew Cave, I can. I can get through it pretty quick. I don't have to worry about taking 5 steps and ending up in a battle right away. So it's nice.
Yeah, and even if there's a gore gem blocking your path in one specific area, you can just scout and wipe it out. And
Yeah,
you
yeah,
never have
exactly.
to. Yeah.
I love the scouting mechanic.
I saw your guide on it earlier
Oh, I love it.
today, and yeah, he does a great guide on it. And
Oh,
like,
thank
what's
you.
funny is Ed uploads a video that shows the best scouting spots, and I'm like, I'm the developer, I'm the guy that made these spots. I still don't know what spots they're going to be. I don't know where he's choosing. I don't know where he found his good, so I'm interested myself. Like, where did he? And it's kind of weird, right? Because I should know the best scouting spots, but some things are just emergent,
Yeah,
through
yeah.
gameplay.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if someone comes along and finds a more like, I guess you could say, a more like fine-tuned, like, this is like exactly how much XP per minute type thing. I've always like kind of combined, just the way I play. I like to combine AFK-ness with like, can I multitask and stuff like that. So like the first method I specifically chose because you can do my wild egg. Well, it's not just mine actually. It's the psychic boss came up with the bulk of that method with the wild egg method, and you can multitask and scout. So that's why I put that one on the list. It's not necessarily the fastest, but you can also get wild eggs while you're doing it. And then the second one was really nice because you can kind of just stand on the bridge and then the monsters will come to you. And then the third one, they're just really high levels.
Yeah, those Romney knocked.
Yeah,
They'll get you.
they're not playing around. They're fast too.
They
Because
are.
I tested some of the speed, right, and they're a lot faster than the other ones.
Yeah, yeah. The speed they move on the overworld is actually matches their in battle stat speed. So a fast monster will chase you fast.
Oh, that's awesome. I guess we sort of already talked about this, but why did you decide to use turn-based combat? That was also asked by Bloba.
I can answer that real quick because while there may be many reasons, there's only one real, true, most important reason, and that's that I love pixel monster sprites. They're my favorite thing in the world. I'm obsessed with them. I save them. I look at them for hours. How am I going to show those sprites if I don't have turn-based combat?
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. That's what it's all about.
That's
those
it.
pixel monsters.
Oh, excuse me. Whoops. Just a little beeping going on. My
That's
baby
okay.
monitor's running out of batteries there. I turned it off. Okay. Okay. What was the hardest part of development for you?
Man, the hardest part of development was September 2018.
Kickstarter?
No, the Kickstarter ended in May
Oh, okay.
2018. So what's the best way to describe this without giving spoilers? Basically, during the Kickstarter, the game's story was about 40% done. By that September, the game's story was about 70% done.
Oh, wow.
So we made a lot of progress very quick, and a lot of it was because I was just like running on adrenaline all the time because we just had this huge Kickstarter and I couldn't believe my eyes. Just the fact that we made our goal, I felt like I won $1 trillion.
Yeah.
And it was just for Monster Crown. I didn't need to do anything else with it, and it was fantastic. And it made me so driven, and I didn't even spend a cent of it until way later in the fall, but it was just so motivating.
Yeah.
So when I got to the 70% mark at the start of September, my birthday was about to come up. I was going to be 28 in September. And I thought, well, I want to finish the story. And, it's not really a spoiler, but there's a substantial post game.
Oh,
in
nice.
Monster Ground.
Nice.
So I wanted to finish the story, and I wanted to finish the post game. And all the cutscenes and all the story and that sort of thing. I thought, well, I can start bug fixing what I have right now, or I can finish the content, and then it's much easier to just go back and get rid of bugs.
Yeah.
So it's probably the quickest way to do development. And this was just a couple of months after Kickstarter. So I sat down and I grinded. I do my day job, but I'd get up an hour and a half before I had to go to work, and I'd work. And then I'd get home and I'd work again until I collapsed like around 12. and I did that from the start of September to about mid-November,
Hmm.
and it was very exhausting.
Wow. Yeah.
And I took a couple of weeks off during that time. I just took some vacation and I worked on it, and those were just working the entire day. The middle of November came, and I was listening to a song. It was around noon, and I just finished up the final cutscene at the end of the game, at the end of the post game, and I was so happy. And later that day, I went outside and I looked into the distance and I felt my eyes just do this really weird thing. Like the muscles in my eyes like contract and kind of move around a bit. And I realized that it had been the first time I focused on the distance.
Oh.
I couldn't remember last time I did it, but my eyes, I guess, were so attuned to just staring at that screen. And so, you wouldn't believe it, but I've been done the story of the game
Yeah.
since then, and like that was about 2 years ago. Yeah, so it's November now,
Yeah.
so it's pretty much 2 years ago. So the last 2 years have been updating sprites, updating the overworld sprites,
Hmm.
and fixing bugs. And I never would have thought it would have taken this long to get the rest of the development done. Like, who would ever think that?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
But it is. But that was the hardest part of development. That was the hardest part of development when it came to pure work, but there was one harder mental part of development. And that's in the fall of 2019, where I became very sick and got diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome,
Hmm.
which has an autoimmune component to it.
Oh, okay.
And there was a point when I didn't know what I had, and I would go to sleep for 14 hours, and I would wake up, and I felt like just 14 hours tireder. And
Yeah.
I would play Super Mario World, which I had been playing since I was 4 years old, and I couldn't jump over the first hole because my eyes wouldn't focus, my hands wouldn't. I couldn't do anything
Oh, wow.
at all. I thought I was dying. I thought maybe I had some kind of cancer or
Yeah.
something. I very seriously was worried about this, and I didn't know. Okay, if I die, what's going to happen to Monster Crown?
Yeah.
Who's going to make sure these people get this? Because there's a bit of a debate. Like, when an author starts a story, do you owe it to your readers, to your fan base, to give them an ending?
Yeah.
And maybe it's not healthy, but I felt like I did. So that was very difficult, having to keep the Kickstarter backers updated when the game was already delayed, and I was so sick, and I had no hope for recovery. I didn't think I was going to recover anytime soon. I had completely burned out and run out of hope. So mentally and psychologically, that was the hardest part of development.
I can imagine. Yeah.
Yeah, thank God I got better.
Yeah. We're all definitely happy for that.
Thank you.
No
I'm
problem.
very grateful. There's a lot of people with it that don't get better.
Yeah. Yeah. I can imagine. All right. So I got two more questions. The first one, and this is always like, this question gets asked pretty much in every stream by someone in the community, but it's always my favorite one. So would you be open to more collabs in the same vein as the ones you did with Zach? And this was asked by her Marlon.
Absolutely. If it fits.
Yeah,
Um,
of course. Yeah, it makes sense.
if it fits. Early on, they made Shovel Knight available to anyone that wanted to feature it in an indie game. All you had to do was ask for permission.
Mm.
So
Oh,
people started featuring it and everything.
You know what? That makes sense. Because Shovel Knight makes an appearance in a couple other games that my cousin told me about.
Yeah, it's a bit of a rite of passage, I think, for certain indie games to include him. And so I thought, well, that could be nice. I guess it would add some legitimacy. It might bring more people's attention to Monster Crown.
Mm.
But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that Shovel Knight doesn't fit in Monster
Yeah.
Crown's world. Even if we could make the art style fit, the concept of him is just, it can't exist in our world. It's at a clash with everything else about it. So yeah, I mean, it would need to be a really good fit. It would need to be clear that whatever entity it is not native to the Monster Crown universe
Yeah.
through some sort of portal or something like that to make it clear. But assuming that all that was, kept in scope, absolutely. I'm all about the crossovers, and something I've mentioned a little bit before, but not much, is that the Telefang designers monster that I've had commissioned for Monster Crown after Monster Crown is out, we're going to make that available to anyone doing a Monster Taming game, much in the capacity that Shovel Knight has made available.
Oh, cool.
So this is a quite popular Japanese designer.
Yeah.
The monster designer of the Telefang series, and I believe the mangaka of Vampire Hunter D.
Okay.
So to me, this is it's a very important, and it brings a sense of legitimacy to the modern indie genre, because
Yeah.
Telefang was a massive game. It was a real, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's so easy to see these indie games as not real monster taming games, but
Yeah.
they are. So I want to make that available to everyone, that people can just ask, and I can send them an email saying okay. And if you're making a monster taming game, you can put in this guy, this monster, this beast.
Yeah.
I think it'd be cool.
I wish Telefang never really came out in the West, eh?
No,
It's unfortunate.
I mean,
I've seen gameplay from it. It looks really cool.
yeah, it came over here in bootleg fashion. Speaking of our bootlegs earlier,
I've heard about that.
and yeah, and you can't discuss Telefang without bringing up Rachel, who is like, she is the Pope of Monster Crown, or of Telefang. I'm going to be the Pope of Monster Crown. Story Rachel, but she's the Pope of Telefang. So yeah, check her out. She interviews the same designer I worked with, and she's done so much to help bring popularity to the game in the West and legitimacy.
Yeah, oh, for sure. All right, and I guess the last question, and I mean, sometimes I forget to ask this, but I generally try to ask this to every dev. Which is, and obviously now this is specific to your game, but who's your favorite crownie? And Kaiser also asked this question.
Okay. Kaiser's asking some good questions. My favorite crownie, it's in flux. You know, the last one I've drawn or seen in a situation that makes it look really cool can often be my favorite. Right now, the one that sticks out my favorite, because I just made some new art of it that I just love the way it looks, is Glossum.
Okay.
Which is the large possum-based monster. But also, I'm always a huge fan of Chuck, of Panapillar, of Honey, of Tanukruk. There's so many I'm a big fan of, but the secret dragon that's on the cover might be my favorite.
Oh yeah.
Overall,
I remember hunting for the dragon.
Yeah.
It's not available yet.
It's not available yet, but it's made by a guest designer, and it's just, I saw it and it blew me away. And I said to the person, can I buy this design from you? The artist is Mossworm on Twitter, if you check her out. I said, can I buy this design? And she was like, yeah, sure. And so I purchased the design from her, and then I came back and I was like, can I put it as the main monster on the cover too? Because it's like exactly everything I ever wanted in a monster. And she was cool with that. And then I drew it on the cover, and it was so stressful for me to draw that on the cover, because I'm like, okay, so I finally got my hands on this ultimate monster to me. A perfect iconic 90s monster. I want it to be right up there with the other figureheads of the game. Now I got to draw it right. If I don't draw this right, this is going to be forever immortalized. There's not like a Monster of the Week where I can redraw it. This is going to be forever immortalized on the cover of this game. And if Monster Crown's ever a success, 10 years from now, if it was a franchise, we'll look back at this cover as the one that started it all. So I gotta get it right.
Yeah, for sure.
And yeah, we haven't even officially revealed any details about that monster yet, but it's on the way. It's gonna be good. It's and I can't wait till you all tame your own.
Oh, that's exciting. I actually, it makes a lot of sense that I'm so that like I hold the Monster Crown designs in such a high regard, because there's a ton of dragons, there's a ton of dinos, there's a ton of just things with claws. Like that's probably why.
That
Those
could
are
be
just
why.
my type of monsters.
And even the cute ones,
yeah,
there's something weird about them. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That's another thing I try to keep in there.
Yeah, no, it's definitely awesome. And the lore behind the monsters too. It's just like, I think probably my favorite entry is Who Claws. Where basically, other than, I think the Atomic Clock entries are really cool, but if we're talking about base monsters, I love that Who Claw just goes off and does whatever it wants, regardless of the safety for its tamer.
Yeah. It's a devious one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm really glad you like that. I appreciate you saying that. I didn't know if people were gonna like long lore in the beginning. I thought people were just gonna get sick of the lore. Pokedex entries are usually like 2, 3 sentences. And of course, we can't include the full like half-page lore in the game, so it's a cut-down version.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that those longer versions are out there for people that want to seek them out because there's a lot of thought and effort put into making a certain atmosphere for those, and making sure that untrustworthy monsters are seen that way.
Yeah, no, for sure. The wiki has like, if you guys are interested, the wiki has like some nice paragraphs of some of these monster entries, and I might be a little like patchy in terms of my memory on them, but I've read every single one on the wiki at one point or another, so they're all
That's
interesting.
awesome. Thank you for that. I appreciate you saying that.
Of course.
And a lot of care has gone into making sure they don't conflict with each other or with the world. Everything fits. So that's awesome to hear that you've enjoyed those. Thank you.
No problem. All right, guys. Unless do you have anything else to add before we sort of wrap things up?
Let me see. Well, none of this is possible without the fans. The people that supported us from the beginning, the people that initially followed us on Twitter when we first set it up in like March or April 2016, the people that backed us on Kickstarter, the people that have supported us on early access, the people that hang out on our Discord just for fun. I can't thank those people enough for making this possible and making my dreams come true. And Ed, you're a very cool YouTuber.
Thank you.
And you're really growing, and to see someone make guides and content to what I put out there is just next level, and it's an evolving thing. Like 5 years ago, there was no you.
Yeah.
So I'm incredibly grateful, and I'm so happy to be finding my place in this genre. So yeah, big thanks to the genre, the fans, to you, to everyone listening to this, to Zach. I consider myself very fortunate.
Yeah, you know what? I'm the same way. Thanks to everybody who watches my channel and makes this something that people can come and see different types of monster taming games on. If you asked me when I started doing this if I would have developers, like I believe this is episode 6, and this is supposed to be a once a month, twice a month type thing. But I've just been getting like tons of people who want to be on the podcast. Like this week we have 2, next week we have 1. It's been crazy, and honestly, like I just want to say thanks to everybody who watches as well, and thanks to you, Jason, for you came to me when I had like maybe 300 subscribers, and it means a lot that you'd come to someone who, like, at the time I'd be lucky if I got 100 views on a video. And you still came to me and you gave me my not a fish Croodle Doodle reveal and lady. So like it means a lot to me.
No problem at all. You definitely earned it. People like when I was telling you about the artists I worked with earlier, Alessandro and Eric's, like they were so hard to track down. They didn't need a big social media presence. Their work spoke for themselves.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you can instantly tell when someone's got passion, when they've got spirit, when they've got a vision. So that was visible about you instantly, Ed. So it's no surprise to me at all that you're growing like crazy.
I appreciate it.
And anyone that's listening to this, check out Ed's Patreon because he's the kind of guy you want to support.
Thanks. Actually, after you mentioned it in the first stream, because I didn't have one, I had a few inboxes about it. Like, when are you gonna make it? I was like, okay, fine, I'll make it. Jesus.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, no,
next
it
thing you're gonna be,
is.
you're gonna next problem you're gonna have is where to put all the money. You're gonna be shoving it onto your couch in your baby's cradle, like everywhere.
All right, guys. Well, definitely check out the Monster Crown Discord server, their Twitter page, their YouTube channel. And I highly recommend picking it up. It's a ton of fun. And yeah, with that, we're signing off. Until next time, peace.
Thanks, Ed.
Thanks.